Jocks Rowan had seen many strange things during his years as a human patrol captain, but nothing prepared him for the moment he opened the drifting escape pod. His ship, the Horizon Wake, had been on a routine patrol along the quiet border of the Orion Divide, far from any major conflict. Space out here was usually calm, sometimes too calm. But the moment the scanners detected a faint distress signal, Jocks felt something in his chest tighten. Something told him this was not an ordinary rescue. The pod was rotating slowly, its metal surface scorched from an explosion. No life signs registered clearly, only a faint, flickering signal that came and went. Jocks knew it could be a trap, but he also knew he couldn't leave someone to die alone in the cold of space. He ordered the pod to be brought into the docking bay and personally went down with 2 crew members to open it. As the door hissed open, a dim blue light spilled out. Inside, lying in a slumped position, was an alien woman in damaged armor. Her breathing was shallow, almost undetectable, and her face was pale beneath faint markings along her skin. Jocks stared at her for a moment, struggling to believe what he was seeing. He knew that face. He had seen it on news streams, bounty alerts, military briefings, and even whispered stories exchanged in dark corners of distant stations. It was Arya Vesk, the galaxy's fiercest assassin. The one hunted and feared by governments, rebels, and criminals alike. A figure dressed in mystery and danger. Some believed she had no real face, only masks. Others claimed she was not a person at all, but a living weapon created in secret laboratories. But Jocks was staring at her true form now, wounded, unconscious, breathing as if every breath hurt. His crew stood frozen behind him. One whispered in disbelief, "Captain, that's her. That's really her." But Jocks said nothing. Instead, he knelt beside her. The armor on her chest was cracked, revealing scorched circuits and a faint pulse under her skin. She had clearly been through a battle far worse than anything an ordinary person could survive. Yet here she was, alone in a broken pod, drifting without direction. Protocol was clear. Someone like Arya Vesk should be restrained instantly, placed in maximum security, and reported to Central Command. Humans had no business protecting someone like her. Even sheltering her could bring trouble from half the galaxy. But as Jocks looked at her injured form, something shifted inside him. Instead of a feared assassin, he saw someone exhausted, someone who had been running for too long. "Get her to the medbay," he said quietly. His crew stared at him, shocked. One officer stepped forward nervously. "Sir, she's dangerous." "Not right now," Jocks replied. "Right now, she needs help." The crew obeyed, though their steps were hesitant. They lifted her onto a stretcher, careful not to disturb the cracked armor. Jocks walked beside them, watching her face. Even unconscious, she looked tense, as if her mind refused to relax. He wondered when she had last slept without fear. In the medbay, the human medical system scanned her. The readings were confusing. Her biology was partly organic and partly enhanced with microscopic implants that humans had only begun to understand. The doctor, a calm woman named Ilara, adjusted the tools and monitored the results. "She's stable for now," Ilara said. "But whatever she went through, it was brutal." Jocks nodded. "Keep her under observation. No restraints unless she becomes a threat." Captain Ilara said softly, "You're taking a risk." "I know," he replied, "but I'll take responsibility." When Jocks left the medbay, he could feel the tension in his ship. Whispered conversations traveled through the halls. Every crew member knew the risks of harboring someone like Arya. Some believed she was a monster. Some believed she was unstoppable. And some feared that helping her would bring enemies far worse than her. But Jocks kept his thoughts steady. Something about her presence felt wrong in a different way. Not dangerous, but sad. It was rare for him to trust instincts alone, yet this time he couldn't ignore them. Hours passed before the first sign of trouble appeared on the scanners. A faint unknown signal flickered across the starfield behind them. It wasn't strong enough to identify clearly, but it wasn't natural. Something or someone was tracking them. Jocks felt his jaw tighten as he studied the readings. Whoever was following them had advanced cloaking technology. Only a few groups in the galaxy had access to such technology. and none of them were friendly. He ordered the scanning crew to remain alert, but didn't raise the alarm yet, until he knew the true source of the signal. He didn't want to panic his people. Later that night, Cycle Jocks returned to the medbay. Arya was still unconscious, hooked to machines that carefully adjusted her breathing and blood flow. The soft light reflected off her armor, revealing symbols etched into the metal. They weren't decorations. They looked more like identification marks. Maybe codes. Maybe warnings. He stepped closer, watching her breathing. She looked different from the ruthless assassin the galaxy feared. She looked tired, as though she had been fighting her entire life and had finally reached a point where she couldn't fight anymore. Jocks wondered who had done this to her. Who had made someone so feared look so fragile? A small sound escaped her lips, almost a whisper. Jocks leaned in to hear better. She wasn't speaking clearly, only murmuring something under her breath in a language he didn't understand. Her eyebrows tightened as if she was reliving something painful. "Easy," Jocks said quietly. "You're safe here." He didn't expect her to hear him, but her breathing eased just slightly. It surprised him. Maybe on some level, she sensed she was no longer in danger. The ship continued toward human space. But the strange signal following them did not disappear. Every few hours it reappeared briefly, as if whoever was behind it wanted to let the horizon wake. No, they were not alone. Jocks kept the crew busy with drills and tasks. But the tension grew with each passing hour. Finally, after nearly a full day, Arya's eyes opened. It happened silently. No alarms went off. No sudden movement. Jocks had returned to check on her again, standing quietly beside the medbay bed. When he looked down, her eyes were already on him. Cold, bright, and sharp, but confused. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. She didn't move. She didn't reach for a weapon or try to escape. She simply observed him, measuring him, trying to understand where she was. "You're awake," Jocks said softly. Her voice, when it came, was rough from exhaustion. "Why am I alive?" "Because I brought you in," he said. "You were in a damaged escape pod." Her eyes flickered with disbelief. "You should have restrained me." "Maybe," he replied, "but you were hurt, and I don't see any reason to treat you like a prisoner." She studied him for a long time, almost as if she suspected a trick. "Humans do not protect people like me." "Maybe not usually," Jocks admitted. "But you're safe here." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened slightly. She tried to sit up, wincing in pain. Jocks moved to help, but she shifted away slightly, not aggressively, just out of habit. "You don't need to fear us," he said. Arya looked at the ceiling for a moment before speaking again. "No one follows a drifting pod unless they expect danger. You should have kept going." Axe leaned back against the wall. "Maybe, but I'd rather take a risk than leave someone to die." Her gaze dropped to her hands, still weak from whatever she had endured. "They are coming," she whispered. "They won't stop." "Who?" he asked. Her eyes met his again, filled with something that looked almost like fear. "The Syndicate." Jocks felt a chill move through him. The Syndicate was one of the most powerful and secretive groups in the galaxy. If they wanted Arya, if they were chasing her, then his ship was in more danger than he had realized. Before he could speak, the ship's alarm beeped softly. The scanner picked up the same faint signal again, this time closer. Arya closed her eyes and whispered, "They found me." Jocks stared at the blinking alarm and then at her. He didn't regret bringing her aboard. Not even now. But he knew this was only the beginning. The alarm kept blinking with a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, warning the crew that something unseen was closing in on them. Jocks stood silently for a moment, listening to that soft but urgent sound. He already knew what it meant. Whatever had been following them from the moment they rescued Arya was now close enough to reveal its presence. It wasn't an accident anymore. It was a hunt. Arya watched the alarm with a calmness that didn't match the situation. Her face didn't show fear, only acceptance. She had expected this. She had been waiting for it. Jocks finally spoke. "How many will they send?" Arya slowly pulled herself into an upright position. ignoring the pain that tightened her expression. It depends. If they think I'm weak, they'll send a small group to capture me. If they think I'm a threat, they'll send more. But they always send enough to win. How dangerous are they? Jox asked. Arya met his eyes. They trained me. That should answer your question. Jox felt a weight settle in his chest. He didn't want to involve his crew in a conflict they couldn't win. But he also couldn't hand Arya over. He didn't care who she had been in the past. What mattered now was the person sitting in his medbay, someone exhausted, hunted, and in need of protection she had never been given before. He touched his cum. Bridge, report. Voice replied, tense and shaky. Captain, the unknown signal is 40,000 kilometers behind us. Too weak to scan clearly, but it's definitely following us. Keep tracking it, Jox said. Don't engage. I'll be there soon. He turned back to Arya. I need to know what we're dealing with. She hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then she took a slow breath. The Syndicate isn't just a group. It's a whole system built on control. They took me and many others when we were young. They turned us into weapons. They never let us choose our lives. Listened closely. She had spoken more in the last few minutes than most people claim she ever had in years. I broke their rules, she continued quietly. I refused my last mission. I tried to leave. They don't allow that. They want me back because I know their secrets. And because I'm an embarrassment to them. A weapon that walked away. Why did you refuse? Jox asked. Arya's eyes shifted downward. Because they ordered me to eliminate a group of refugees. There was no reason, no threat. Only families trying to escape the war zones. I realized I had become exactly what they wanted. A tool with no heart. I couldn't continue. Jox felt a quiet respect for him in his mind. She wasn't what the galaxy believed. She wasn't a monster. She was someone who had tried to break free of something cruel. Did anyone help you escape? He asked. No, she whispered. I escaped alone. I've always been alone. Jox shook his head gently. Not anymore. She looked up sharply, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with trust. Not with certainty. Before she could answer, a louder alarm echoed across the ship. This one wasn't subtle. It was a direct alert. Jax tapped his cum again. Report. The bridge officer's voice came fast. Captain, the signal just got stronger. It's overtaking us. Jox didn't waste a second. He turned to Arya. Can you move? Yes, she said, forcing herself to stand. Her legs trembled, but she stayed upright. Then come with me. He guided her toward the door, but she paused. I'm putting your crew in danger. They're already in danger, Jox said. And the only way we survive is if we work together. Arya followed him out of the medbay. The ship's corridors were filled with quiet panic. Crew members rushed to their stations, glancing nervously at Arya as she walked past. She didn't react to their stares. She had long grown used to fear. But something inside her tightened each time she saw it. She didn't want these humans to fear her, not after what they had already done for her. When they reached the bridge, the large screen showed a faint outline of a ship entering their sensor range. It was dark, sleek, and shaped like an arrow. Its cloak shimmered like broken light. Arya exhaled slowly. That's a Syndicate hunter craft. Jox stepped forward. How strong is it? Stronger than us, she said simply. But not unbeatable. Jox turned to his crew. Everyone stay calm. They're not attacking yet. They're observing. Arya watched the readings. Her sharp eyes picked up patterns the humans missed. They're scanning the ship for me, she said. They know I'm here. The hunter craft moved closer, slowing to match the horizon wake's speed. It hovered, waiting. What are they planning? Jox asked. They want to board, Arya replied. They think I'm too weak to fight. Are you? Jox asked. Arya looked at him for a long moment. Weak, yes. Unable to fight? No. Jox gave the order for shields to be raised. The ship hummed with energy as the defensive barrier activated. The hunter craft responded by sending a piercing beam of light across the horizon wake. It wasn't a weapon. It was a warning. Arya stepped closer to Jox. They want you to surrender me peacefully. They always try that first. And if we don't? Jox asked. They'll force their way in. Jox could hear the quiet fear rising in his crew. He couldn't blame them. The Syndicate were known for ruthless tactics. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. He turned to Arya. If we tried to run, would we have a chance? No, she said. Their engines are faster. What about fighting? She studied the hunter craft carefully. You can't win a direct fight, but you can surprise them. Jox raised an eyebrow. How? Arya walked to the display and pointed at the craft's underside. There's a blind spot here. The Syndicate always leaves it. They believe no one is foolish enough to get that close. Because it's too risky? He asked. Yes, she said. But if you can fly under them, you can disable their navigation systems. They'll retreat if they can't control their ship. Jox turned to his pilot. Can we do it? The pilot hesitated. It's possible. Hard, but possible. Jox nodded. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The crew began adjusting controls, preparing the ship for a risky move. Arya stood behind the pilot, giving precise instructions. Her voice was calm, steady, controlled, the voice of someone who had been trained in the art of war since childhood. The horizon wake accelerated suddenly, dropping downward. The hunter craft reacted immediately, firing a containment net. The glowing strands of energy shot out like a web. But Jox's pilot twisted the ship sharply, avoiding it by inches. Arya gripped the back of the pilot's chair. Now drop lower. 3 degrees left. Then straight up. The ship dove beneath the hunter craft, pushing its engines to the limit. The interior lights flickered as pressure slammed through the hull. Now, Arya shouted. The pilot forced the ship upward, sliding into the narrow blind spot under the hunter craft. The Syndicate ship couldn't target them here. It was too close, too unexpected. Jax gave the final command. Disable their navigation. The ship fired a precise EMP burst upward. It hit the hunter craft directly. Sparks burst from its engines, and the vessel drifted sideways, struggling to stay balanced. Arya watched quietly. They'll retreat, and she was right. The hunter craft slowly turned away, its engines flickering. It moved back into the shadows and vanished in a shimmer of cloaking light. The bridge erupted with quiet relief. Some crew members sighed, others laughed nervously. But Jox kept his focus on Arya. She was staring at the empty screen, her shoulders sinking slightly. They'll return, she said softly. That was only the beginning. I'll be ready, Jox replied. Arya looked at him, confusion flickering across her face. Why do you keep helping me? Because Jox said gently, everyone deserves a chance to be free. Arya turned away, hiding the emotion that threatened to break through her calm expression. She wasn't used to kindness. She wasn't used to trust. She wasn't used to someone standing beside her without expecting something in return. For the first time in her life, she felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she didn't understand. She dared to hope it was something like safety. The horizon wake drifted quietly through the dark stretch of space, its engines humming softly after the tense escape. The crew felt relief, but it was mixed with fear. Everyone knew the Syndicate never gave up after one attempt. They always returned stronger, smarter, and faster. The silence inside the ship was not peaceful. It was heavy, like the stillness before a storm. Arya stood near the large viewing window on the bridge, watching the stars slip past like quiet lights. Jox walked over and stood beside her. He didn't speak at first. He simply looked at her, waiting for her to meet his eyes. She did eventually, but only for a moment. They won't stop chasing, she said quietly. They will send a full hunting fleet next time. Jox nodded slowly. I know. Your ship can't outrun them, she added. You can't outgun them either. You said they can be surprised, Jox replied gently. Maybe we can use that again. Arya shook her head. That trick only works once. They adapt quickly. They know I am here. They know I am helping you. They will assume I will use that blind spot again. They will protect it. Jock stayed calm. What do you suggest then? Arya turned away from the stars and walked to the center of the bridge. For the first time since she had awakened, she looked uncertain. She hesitated before speaking. You need to reach a human stronghold, a place with enough ships to defend against a syndicate fleet. It's several hours away, the pilot said. If the syndicate sends a full attack group, we won't make it. Arya took a slow breath. Then we have to keep them busy long enough for you to escape. Ox frowned. What do you mean? Arya looked directly at him, her voice steady but filled with something heavy. They want me, not you, not your ship. If I leave, if I give them a distraction, you'll have a chance to reach safety. Jock stared at her, not believing what he was hearing. You want to go out there alone? It's the only way, she said softly. They'll focus on me. Absolutely not, Jock said without hesitation. I didn't rescue you just to watch you walk back into danger. Arya held his gaze, her eyes calm but firm. This is the life I've always known. Running, fighting, surviving alone. But you and your crew showed me something new. You treated me like a person, not a weapon. You gave me something the Syndicate never allowed. Oh, what was that? Jox asked quietly. A choice. Her voice trembled slightly at the end, and she looked away. Jock saw the truth in her eyes. She meant every word. She truly believed sacrificing herself would save them. But Jox wasn't ready to accept that. He stepped closer. You don't owe us anything, Arya. She opened her mouth to argue, but Jox gently interrupted. And we're not giving you up. A small, confused breath escaped her lips. She wasn't used to someone refusing to let her go. She wasn't used to someone fighting for her. The Syndicate had trained her to believe she was replaceable, a tool that could be discarded if broken. But Jock stood in front of her as if she were someone valuable. Before Arya could respond, the ship's alarm blared loudly. This time, it wasn't a soft alert. It was a sharp, piercing warning that filled every corridor. The scanning officer shouted from her station, voice shaking. Captain, multiple signals detected. At least 6 Syndicate ships. They're approaching fast. The bridge filled with quiet panic. Crew members rushed to stations. Jock stepped forward, jaw tight. Arya's eyes narrowed, her calm expression returning. They're here, she whispered. On the screen, 6 dark ships emerged from the shadows of space. Their hulls glowed with faint red lines like veins pulsing through metal. They spread out in a formation that blocked every possible escape route. They weren't here to warn. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end the chase. Jox turned to Arya. You said they always send enough to win? Yes, she replied. And now they have. The largest ship moved forward. A transmission signal appeared on the screen. The bridge fell silent as an image flickered into view. A cold-faced Syndicate commander appeared, his eyes sharp and unblinking. Human vessel, he said in a stiff voice. You have something that belongs to us. Release Arya Vesk immediately. Jock stepped forward. She is under our protection. The commander didn't blink. If you refuse, your ship will be disabled. Your crew will be captured. And your lives will be evaluated. Arya stepped forward, surprising everyone. She stood beside Jox, her expression unreadable. They won't negotiate, she whispered to him. They only use words to delay. The commander's eyes sharpened. Arya Vesk. Return now. You are a Syndicate asset. I am no one's asset, she said quietly. The commander's expression didn't change, but his eyes turned colder. Then you are unnecessary. The transmission cut off. The ships moved. All at once, the Syndicate fleet opened fire. Streams of glowing energy ripped across space. The horizon wake shook violently as the shields absorbed the first impact. The crew held onto their stations as the ship trembled under the assault. Jock shouted commands. Evasive maneuvers. Keep moving. Don't let them trap us. The ship twisted and turned, engines burning hot. But the Syndicate ships were faster. They surrounded the horizon wake in a tight circle, cutting off every escape corridor. Arya watched with intense focus. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing patterns, predicting moves. She pointed to the screen. They're trying to isolate your engines. If they destroy the rear boosters, you can't outrun them. The pilot nodded and adjusted the ship's angle. The horizon wake dove downward, dodging a blast by inches. Sparks flew across the bridge as another hit scraped the shields. "We can't keep this up," the pilot shouted. Arya stepped forward. "Then we need to hit them back." "Weapons?" Jox asked. "Not weapons," Arya said. "They expect weapons. They expect power blasts. But there is one thing they don't expect from humans." "What's that?" Jox asked. "Close combat," she replied. The crew stared at her in shock. Arya continued. "Get under their formation. Fly into the dead zone between their ships. They won't fire there. They don't risk friendly damage." Jox turned to his pilot. "Can you do it?" The pilot's eyes widened, but he nodded. "I'll try." The horizon wake dropped suddenly, diving between the Syndicate ships. The enemy fired, but the shots passed overhead, unable to hit the tight space below them. The Syndicate ships struggled to track them without risking each other. Arya pointed again. "There, the command vessel. If we disable it, the others will fall out of formation." "But how do we disable it?" Jox asked. "I can do it," Arya said. "I know their codes. I know their systems. But I need to connect directly." "From where?" Jox asked. Arya looked at the cargo bay hatch. "From outside." Jox felt his heart sink. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. It's the only way," she said. "I can't do it from inside the ship." Jox opened his mouth to argue, but Arya placed a hand on his arm. It was the first time she had willingly touched anyone since she came aboard. "You saved me," she said softly. "Let me save you." His chest tightened. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to keep her safe. But he also knew she was right. Without disabling the command vessel, the horizon wake wouldn't survive much longer. He nodded slowly. "I'm going with you." Arya shook her head. "This is my fight. And you're too important to your crew." Jox wanted to protest. But Arya turned quickly and ran toward the cargo bay. Jox followed her, even if only to see her off. She suited up in a light exosuit. Her hands moved with practiced speed. Jox stood behind her, feeling a heavy ache in his chest. "Be careful," he said quietly. She looked at him, her eyes soft for the first time. "You gave me a chance to be more than what they made me. I won't forget that." Before he could say anything else, she stepped into the airlock. The doors opened. Arya launched herself into space. The sight of her moving across the hull of the ship was both terrifying and breathtaking. She moved with grace, even in zero gravity. She leaped toward the command vessel, using small boosters on her suit. Enemy fire streaked past. But she dodged each shot with trained precision. She reached the command vessel and attached a small device to its hull. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. She entered a code only she knew. Inside the horizon wake, the bridge held its breath. Suddenly, the Syndicate command vessel's lights flickered. Its engines sputtered. Its weapons shut down. A ripple of confusion passed through the other ships. Their formation broke. Jox shouted, "Now. Full speed. Get us out of here." The horizon wake shot forward, escaping the trap. Behind them, the Syndicate ships drifted in confusion. Arya pushed off from the command vessel, firing her boosters to return to the horizon wake. Jox watched through the window, heart pounding until she reached the airlock. When she stepped inside, he rushed to her without thinking. She pulled off her helmet, breath uneven. "Did we make it?" she asked. Jack smiled, the first real smile in hours. "Because of you." Her shoulders relaxed. She looked around at the crew who gathered at the door, staring at her with gratitude instead of fear. For the first time in her life, she felt proud. She wasn't a weapon. She wasn't an assassin. She was someone worth saving. And someone who saved others. Jox placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're staying with us, Arya, if you want." Arya met his eyes. "I do. And as the Horizon Wake sailed toward human territory, the galaxy would soon learn something new. The Syndicate's fiercest weapon had chosen humanity, and humanity, as always, would fight for their own.